always be a choice. Um, one of the things that comes up for me is that, a little bit about me. I taught at UCLA for 11 years. I taught in Los Angeles. I have run a management consulting firm. I used to write for the Los Angeles Times. And I came to Santa Maria in 2004. And it's been a different kind of experience for me. I am never know what it's like to be a young person in 2020 growing up in Santa Maria, any more than you're going to know what it's like to be a 50-year-old white guy teaching a class. What makes that interesting is that we both have things to learn from each other. And I mean that sincerely. I owe you a lot of respect as human beings just for enduring what is, at this point in this country, a crazy pandemic, economic and political uncertainty and inequality, out and out, let's call it what it is, racism. And we were all doing this in an environment that no one was prepared for. So as we get started, one of the things I want to talk to you about today is what's called open source learning. Every year for the last 10 years in my classes, my students have been, on the first day, able to choose how they wanted the course to go. And part of that was because of my background, I created a series of ideas that people came to know as open source learning. And real quick, I'm going to share a couple of things with you from my screen. If you've ever heard of the TED Talks, well, now you're getting to meet somebody who's given one. I'm going to play you just a shred of this and then explain why.
What a wonderful moment for learning. Not just because I've had a fan crush on TED for the last few years, and this is an amazing event with all the ideas and speakers we've had so far, but also what a time to be alive and thinking about learning. Traditionally, learning was seen as what happened between our own two ears. And I'm not so sure that's where learning ends. We're talking about social learning now. We're talking about technology-mediated learning. I find myself wondering what's going through all those heads right now.
What's going through all those heads right now, I asked. And the reason I wanted to show you this clip, and I'm going to go make it big now, is because between me and that exit sign way off in the distance, we're about 2,000 people. Now, in this class,
for all of our advances,
I've got about 36. But those 36 people all know stuff. And I don't know what you're thinking. So as we go forward, we've got a way to do this that's not just about one teacher standing in front of a classroom. You're all in 11th grade. So you've all been through this before. You know what it sounds like when a teacher gives you a spiel on the first day, gives you the syllabus, and tells you a nice song and dance that makes it sound like everybody's going to be enthusiastic. And then over the next few weeks, what happens? It all starts sounding like everything else you've ever heard, and it's not that interesting. So rather than do things the same old way, I'm going to roll out a little bit about open source learning and then give you some choices about how we move forward. So this is our course blog. If you don't have this yet, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat. You need to make sure that you've got this link, because everything we do is going to live here. And you might be thinking, well, why? And thanks for the hello, Carlos, I got you. Why can't I just use Canvas? Everybody else seems to be. Well, Canvas is a corporation that uses students' data without asking permission on occasion. And when you graduate, your login credentials to Canvas go away. So when you think about it, you're doing all of this work and they're getting all of the value. And that doesn't make any sense to me. To me, my figuring is, if you write an essay, if you take a test, if you do something that's really interesting and it creates value, well, who should own that? You. But you know how it usually goes in a classroom where you do an assignment, you turn it in, you get a comment or two on your paper. What happens to it after that? It gets crumpled up in the bottom of a backpack, or it gets thrown straight into the wastebasket and it's lost to history. In my classes, what typically happens is that students create their own blogs, and it will go on. Actually, this is your blog or your course blog. So all of your names are waiting for your blogs right here. Now, a lot of this revolves around trust. So what I've done is I set up a sheet with all of your names on it. And I'm going to share that link to it. And for the first day, what I'm going to ask you is to say, did it to these things. Were you at the August 17th Zoom meeting? Well, clearly you are. So did it. And then these other things I'll explain along the way as we go. Why do I trust people? Because it's a pretty crappy world when you can't. Some of you will blow it. Once in a while, I'll have a student do the wrong thing, and then I can't trust that student in the way that I'd like, and I deal with it differently. But really, I would much rather operate from a place of we're all getting our jobs done in a way that we think it should be done. And I'm going to scroll through the course blog a little bit to a post called Will This Blog See Tomorrow? This is the post that I start every year with. And the reason I do that is because I want to give you full information so that you can make a choice about how we go about this. This paragraph here, I call the model open source learning, and I define it with a mouthful. A guided learning process that combines timeless best practices with today's tools in a way that empowers learners to create interdisciplinary paths of inquiry, communities of interest and critique, and a portfolio of knowledge capital that is directly transferable to the marketplace. That sounds a whole lot like blah, blah, blah. So let me break it down. The first part, timeless best practices, well, that just means we're doing a lot of the same things that every other good teacher and student ever did, starting with talking to each other. To do that, please go to the tab that says schedule a meeting with Dr. Preston. That will take you to my calendar, and go ahead and grab a bit of time, 5-10 minutes, probably all we'll need, so that we can have a brief face-to-face interview, like not interview, but just meet each other. And then if you have any questions that you want to ask me, you can. Timeless best practice. I also have a knack for listening and caring about my students. I couldn't hear you. Was that question for me, or did you just open your mic? Okay, if it was a question, ask me again. I couldn't hear you. Today's tools. Right now, we're using tools that weren't available even a couple years ago. A lot of this stuff has been available on the internet for a long time, and that's why I put students on the internet. But video conferencing like this is all, you know, at least at this level, pretty new. Anybody want to guess? I'll give you credit right now if anybody can guess what this picture's of.
Is it from San Luis Obispo?
It's close. This is over the
My
ocean.
house.
It's
That's
your
my house.
So this is Pismo Beach. This is the pier. And
Okay.
I took that picture from the backseat of an airplane, which was scary enough because it was a small little plane. But you know what the scariest part was? That plane was being flown by a student. And the whole story is here at the picture on this blog.
Damn.
Yeah, damn is right. That was a definite pucker moment. But here's the story, and it started with a guy who wasn't doing his work. And he wrote on his blog, high school is a waste of time. And instead of taking offense, I said to him, well, why? And he said, because I want to be a pilot, and nothing in high school is going to help me. And I thought about it, and I thought, you're right. That's true. So what would he need? Well, first of all, he'd need a mentor. This is Ed Mandibles. He's a pilot at Lompoc Airport. Matt connected with Ed. Over the course of the next few months, Matt learned to fly this plane. And when I saw him studying, I realized something that was different about Matt. And this is true for every single one of you. Whether you're passionate about something now, or whether you have yet to find it, every single one of you has the capacity to be great at something. I don't believe that school is bringing that out of most people. School is not the place that it's easiest to learn, or the most fun, or the most anything. When I watched him, I realized he was onto something wonderful. This is the picture that I actually used on the blog. And then he invited me to go up in a flight with him. So this is a pretty extreme example of open source learning, but this is the kind of thing that I really enjoy. And when you think about American literature, Well, we're all American. At least that's where we're living and working. Literature is just the collection of stories we tell. And from there, life becomes wide open. So have a look at this video real quick that my students put together about open source learning, and then we'll think out loud about next steps.
The vast majority of behavior problems in the classroom involve minor breaches of discipline. These incidents frequently originate in the classroom situation itself and are within the control of the teacher. Disciplinary problems in the classroom are symptoms of underlying weaknesses in total learning situations.
Did you ever doubt yourself at any point?
No, I doubt myself all the time.
We are Superman.
So when I see that, I'm reminded of that class of students. And I don't know if anybody, by the way, has had Mr. Hoffman as a substitute at Santa Maria High School, but he was the blonde that was in that classroom. That was pre-pandemic beard and all that for me. But what's interesting to me about that is that I never asked them to make this video. They entered it into some competition about open education resources and then shared it with me. That's the kind of thing that open source learning provides, is the space for you guys to think about what's really meaningful to you and to use this class and put me to work for you so that together we can actually create an experience that you think is valuable. And that's important to me because a lot of the time in traditional classes, you never really know what work is dicey because someone didn't know what they were doing and needed help, or if it was more because they didn't like the work and they weren't trying their hardest or giving it the most effort. I would much rather you choose some of the elements of this course so that you can give it your best effort. And then I get to see what that actually looks like. The other part of this definition that I wanted to key on was interdisciplinary passive inquiry. This word interdisciplinary. Does anyone know what that means? Anybody want to take a guess?
Hmm.
If I have
Hi,
a
good morning.
section, I have a space between two streets, right? So if I have an academic discipline, I'm trying to cut off the music, Carlos. If that has more than one discipline, it's interdisciplinary. Well, life is interdisciplinary. Everything involves the study of more than one thing. If you want to know why that girl or guy doesn't like you, you've got psychology, biology, probability. You've got all sorts of things you can think about. The only place we divide life into subject by subject classrooms is school. So that being said, everything we do is going to be up to you as to which part of it you want to explore. Now, one of the first ways I can demonstrate this is in how people respond. So this is the same exact post, Will This Blog See Tomorrow? But if you notice, this is from last year's class. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to respond to our course blog's post with your thinking. Normally, this would be the moment that I would actually walk out of our classroom and leave the conversation up to you as to whether or not you wanted to do with a textbook or you wanted to do it this way. Now, every class I've ever had votes for this, but it's really important to me that your voice be heard. This isn't about me or what one teacher thinks is a good idea. I genuinely respect each and every one of you, even though we haven't even met yet. So that means I really want to know what you think. So if you noticed on this sheet, the second thing I was asking for was your comment. And all you have to write in these spaces is did it. The comment itself, you know, if you look at what last year's students did, it wasn't a lot. You know, some of them just have one sentence or two. This should take you about 30 seconds. If for any reason your comment doesn't post, send it to me in an email and I'll post it for you. All right, so that's job number 2. Job number 3, to come back to the sheet for a second, was a survey. Now I know everybody's been surveyed to death in this environment, but this isn't hard either. This will take you about a minute. On the course blog, you'll see welcome to the club. The first question asks, what is your name? The second question, what's the best email address to reach you? Now for me, I check the school email pretty frequently, but if you really want to get me in the next couple of weeks quickly, use my off-campus dpreston.learning@gmail.com. It's on the course blog. I check that one all the time. In fact, if I'm awake and I'm not on a Zoom call, you can probably get a response from me in less than an hour. So for you, if there's something happening in the course that you need to know about, or if you're looking for feedback or there's a deadline and I need to reach you via email, I just want to know where the best place is. Same thing with SMS text. I'm pretty sensitive to data costs, so I'm probably not going to text you. But if there's something like a guest speaker coming up and it's last minute, or if there's something that you needed help with and you didn't answer right away or whatever, again, just the best number to reach you. Third, why are you enrolled in the course? For a lot of people, that's going to be graduation or, I don't know, my counselor just did it. That's fine. There's no right or wrong answer here. But if you have a specific reason, I'm curious. What do you want to accomplish in the course? Please describe at least one skill you want to improve or something that you'd like to read, write, or do, or a goal that you want to set for yourself. We'll talk a little bit more about goals coming up. And then this last one, this is where life gets interesting. Please describe something eccentric, look that word up if you need to, about yourself. Shouldn't be embarrassing or scandalous, just something that's interesting and unique about you that other people may not know. Like a fun fact about your family, pets, travels, hobbies, likes, dislikes, fears, whatever. Past answers, and these are all real, have included things like, I have a fear of elbows, or I've never flown on an airplane, or I arrange my shirts by color, or I don't like different kinds of foods to touch each other on my plate. Now, if you've noticed, I refer to the member blogs as member blogs and not student blogs. I consider myself a member of this network. I'm not above you. If, you know, I've got responsibilities to the school district, but that's about the only difference I see between us as learners. I'm older. But why use the word members? Because this functions as a network. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But to be effective members of a network, whether you're on Facebook or in a Fortnite group or wherever, you've got to at least feel like you know the people around you. So what we're going to do with this part is I'm going to create a list out of all of your responses without putting the names on them. Your job is going to be to figure out which person in our network goes with which fact. The first person to match all the names correctly with all the facts wins. And I'm going to guarantee you're going to be glad you did, because the prize I've got in mind is worth cash money, and it's not something that you can get anywhere else. I'm not going to say anything more about that, but that's how this is going to work. So the third job on this sheet is taking care of the survey. That brings us to the course blog and email. And let me explain that one, and then we are good to go for today. On your course blog, there is a post. If I can find it. Somewhere I put it. There we go. That is called member blogs. So if you go to that post, and you're welcome to look at it on my screen or yours, where it says member blogs, in our course, you will create your own blog. We talked about that, which is where you will share your writing and ideas about our study and whatever else you're thinking about. It might actually help to look back. If I show you last year's member blogs page, this is what it's going to wind up looking like. Next to your names that are already there will be all of your course blogs. And you can see that they're all going to be different. Some people will use graphics, some people won't. Some people will use different designs. Some people will post more than others. You'll all be able to see everybody else's. And it's going to wind up being an exchange of ideas. Because when you think about it, after all, if someone does something on their blog, Carlos, I just saw the quote, the chat. If you think this class is hard, it may look hard because there's a lot of stuff online, but the actual process of doing it doesn't have to be. And we'll talk about how to make it easier. But for example, when you look at all these course blogs, they look intimidating at first if you've never done this stuff before. But check this out. If I scroll down a little bit and I go to the how to do it, it's 7 steps. That's it. In fact, some of you will be able to do it right now before this Zoom call is over. All you got to do is go to blogger.com, which is where you're seeing me do all of this stuff. You'll log in like you do everywhere else. You just click until you find the right thing to click on. If you have a Gmail account, it's especially easy, but you can sign in with any email. You can name your blog anything you like. I'm a fan of alliteration, like words that start with similar sounds, like Isaiah's Ideas or Alicia's Academy. But this isn't my blog, it's yours. So you get to choose the title. You can always change the name later if you get a better idea. When I first started doing this stuff, people would ask me, well, aren't you afraid of students being on the public internet? You know, what if they embarrass themselves? Well, I don't know what kind of a person would wake up in the morning thinking, how can I sabotage myself? Right now online, I guarantee you that if we look hard enough, like for 5 minutes, we'll find that someone is telling your story. Could be a credit agency, could be a school transcript, might just be somebody who tagged your picture in a Facebook post, but somewhere there's data about you that people use to form a profile of who you are. Facebook made billions and billions of dollars on this. People ask, well, why is it free to use Facebook? Oh, it's not free, baby. You're paying them. You're paying them with your information. And they use that to sell you to advertisers. We'll talk a lot this year about how the internet works and how you can think about making it work better for you. But the reason I bring this up right now is that when you title your blog or when you decide what to put on it, this is your opportunity to tell your own story. You get to own you and your brand and represent yourself the way you want to be seen in the world. So when you think about who you're going to share this with, I don't know if it's family or prospective employers or scholarship judges or college admissions officers or your girlfriend or boyfriend, but who wants to look like an idiot? So that's why I trust. For the URL, I'm on step 3 now. Use this formula. Your first initial, then your last name, SMHS, and 23. So for example, it would be Jaylene Chavez would use the URL jchavez.smhs23.blogspot.com. Now, all you need to do is fill in that first part because Blogger will then fill in .blogspot.com automatically. If the name isn't available or if you forget or get stuck, all you got to do is reach out and send me an email and I'll help you. Sometimes Blogger will ask you about a domain name or add-on services. Just say no thanks. Everything that we're doing is absolutely free. And then click that orange button that says Create Blog and enjoy that sweet, sweet feeling of success. Afterwards, go to your blog online. So when you're on your dashboard, you're going to click the thing that says View Blog, because what you really want to be able to do is grab that URL like you see me doing right now and copy and paste that into an email that you send me. Once I get that email from you, I'll turn around and I'll put your blog address in the member blogs. Which reminds me of something. I want to go up here to the member blogs page because I had to make some guesses here. You know, when I'm looking at Aries, I haven't met you yet, and I haven't had the chance to ask you if this is the last name you prefer or if you have a shortened version of your first name or a nickname that you prefer. I want to start this year really demonstrating great respect between all of us, and I do respect you. I respect you for showing up because right now life is crazy. One way I can do that is by helping you become known in the way that you want to be known. So when you send me that email, please tell me if there's any changes you'd like to see in your name, the way it's represented on this member directory. Let me know what period you're in, which will make it easier for me, and then give me the URL for your blog. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right, so we are at almost 2:10. And unless I missed my guess, we've got about 10 minutes to go. So those are the 4 things I'm asking for today. And now I want to pause and ask if anybody's got any questions.
Mm-mm.
We good so far?
I think so.
Okay. Let's do this. If you're here, would you please do me a favor and just type here in the chat, and that way I'll just take roll that way and put it in Aries accordingly.
All right.
And for the next 10 minutes, I'm happy to either answer questions, or if people really don't have questions, then I suggest you get started, take care of this stuff now, be done with it, and move on with the rest of your day. And then what I'll do, oh, I almost forgot. Carlos, I love those symbols, man. Keep them coming. I'm going to go back to screen share for a second because I want to draw your attention to something on the course blog. If you notice, in the right column, there's a few tools that you can use underneath the survey. One is follow by email or follow the blog. I strongly encourage you to do this because that way, every single time I add a post to the course blog, you'll get a notice in your email inbox with the address that you follow. You don't have to go to the blog and check it all the time. The other thing, and this is kind of cool, is if you feel like you want to see something in Spanish or in a different language, Arabic looks pretty cool. Check that out. But let's say that you're working with a family member and you want to make it easier on the conversation. With one click, you can go ahead and make the whole thing Spanish. All right? And then that will bring me to the last topic I've got in mind, which is this. In an ordinary year, when you would come into the classroom, we would start off writing in a notebook. I would like you to get one spiral notebook that you can use for the purpose. Even though we're not going to be in person together, writing in a notebook with a pen does 2 things that working on a blog can't. First, it uses a different part of your brain. You all probably have the sensation that like you feel differently when you're writing with a pen or a pencil than when you're working online. Well, that's part of it. The other thing though is that when you're writing in a journal, you can write whatever that you want and not worry about someone seeing it on the screen somewhere. So when it comes to writing about real feelings, when it comes to writing things that maybe you just want to be free to express, but not put on the line, use a notebook. I'm going to think out loud with you over the next week or so about how we'll use our journals. But basically what I like to do in a normal class day is we'll come in, I'll have some music playing, we'll get started with the journals as we write. We'll share some ideas about the topic, which for today was a quote that says, when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. And then we'll talk about whatever text we're reading or whatever is going on with your studies. So for today, have a look at this. Read the poem. I'm not going to ask you to memorize it yet. We're going to talk about that in the days to come. But be aware that every single day you'll have a new agenda. And I know that we're not meeting every day. That's not the important part. Most of the class you'll be able to get from the course blog. The time that we spend together is going to be in conversation so that I can help you where you need it most and not waste your time where you don't need to. You know, that 50-minute class period is pretty inefficient when you think about it. Because for most of it, it seems like the teacher is either too busy to bother with you or they're helping somebody else. And it's still 50 minutes, even if you got the thing done in 10. So this way we have a little bit more flexibility. All right, let me check the chat and make sure that we're good. Does anybody have anything to think about out loud before we go? Steve, what can I do to help you? All right, Steve, I'm going to make a request so I don't put you on the spot. Grab a Calendly appointment with me. Hit the schedule a meeting with Dr. Preston on the course blog. Let's you and I spend 5 minutes. I guarantee you're going to feel better about it when we're done. And as far as TikTok, you guys are going to have all sorts of ways to curate. And believe it or not, TikTok is on my list of things to suggest to you, because one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is embed some videos on your blog of you doing the thinking that we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks. So with all that being said, it's my great pleasure to give you a 5-minute break over and above whatever you have between now and your next class. Does anybody have any last parting shots, jokes, anecdotes, riddles, insults, anything?
When does the next class start?
Next class, I believe, let me check my calendar here, is 20?
Hi, Carlos.
2:30.
2:30?
2:30.
2:30.
Okay.
Right. Hi, Carlos.
All right, you guys. I'm glad to meet you. I hope this is a good start for you. If you need anything from me, send me an email or schedule an appointment, and we'll check it. Call.
All right.
Everybody.
So 3 things we need to do?